Now that we have such a nice lamp, we'd like to be able to make it look really nice. And indeed, if we take enough time with it, we could make this look photorealistic, even though it's nowhere near manufacturable, and even though it lacks a lot of the parts necessary in order to make it a functioning lamp. I've showed you before that we have toolbars at the top, but what I didn't really mention was that we have several different environments, not only the design environment, and these different environments all have different functionalities, and they are a complete design and manufacturing workflow. You can really build and design anything using Fusion 360. For now, let's go to one of the nice ones, one of the simple ones, render. And you'll notice that when we click on it, the toolbars change. The viewport changes as well. Some of you will notice that it's a perspective viewport instead of orthographic. It attempts to have some rendering and lights and shadows. And there's some information here about a gallery and renderings that you've already done, which we have none of yet. So let's begin by closing the rendering gallery to get as much screen space as we can. And in general, you will be working in the rendering environment from left to right to set up your appearances, your scene, and everything else. The best tip we can give you is to imagine that you are taking this photo with a camera. And if you spend time with this, your results can be excellent. It can be as good as a real photograph easily. We're going to do the simple variation today. So let's begin by defining some appearances. If you click on appearances, you will see a pop-up window, and it will show you the library of materials that Fusion comes associated with. Now, there are quite a number in here. One of them would be plastic. Let's do that. And if I might like an opaque plastic. I might like a plastic glossy black. If you so choose, you could also say black. And you'll see a number of different blacks, and plastic glossy black is also there. To use this plastic glossy black material, simply grab it, hold your left mouse button, and pull it per drag and drop onto the body. This will associate plastic glossy black with this body, and the entire body should change color quickly. You'll also notice that in this design, plastic glossy black is included, as is steel. This is the standard default metal or material which is used in Fusion. And before I changed this to plastic glossy black, Fusion was assuming that this lamp was going to be made out of steel. There's no problem with that. We can just leave it as is, or if you so wish, you can get rid of it. Now, that's not very exciting yet. Let's talk about the wood. So let's say we're going to make this with pine. And you'll notice that there are several different kinds of pine here available. You even have 3D pine, and that's interesting because if we have holes or drill holes or something like that in a 3D wood material, the grain will actually follow those contours as it should. Doesn't really matter, but most of these, this one is located on my machine, so I'll probably use this. These here with an arrow, that means that these are not located on my local machine, so I would need to download these quickly by pressing this button. That usually takes just a couple of seconds if you have a fairly decent internet connection. I'm just going to take the one that I have available to me, but what's important is that when I drag and drop, I say this time I would like to only do it on faces. Instead of the entire body, I'm just going to be putting on these faces here, which is why it's handy that I had here split face. So let's drag and drop one by one. And we can either drop from here or from the material in the library. Makes no difference whatsoever. There are ways to multi-select, but I must admit, I'm not the world's most talented mouse user, and this is, after all, a beginner's tutorial, so let's just begin this way. Drag and drop all these over here, and this is starting to look quite okay. Now, you'll say, well, that looks a little bit better, but it doesn't really look real. And that's true, but I want to point out a few things to you about what we can do here. So let's close this. And what you're looking at now is a better than average picture, but it's not rendered per se. We'll need to take care of our setup for our settings, and you can use a solid color, or if you so wish, you could use an environment. And in the environments, we could actually say strange things like dry lake beds or whatever, but I would take maybe perhaps a skylight. And I would drag and drop this into my space. And this might give me shadows or similar things if I so wish. And I'll take that for now. And after I've done with this, making any changes I would like, I can, if I wish, to do an in-canvas render. Let's allow the software to render. This is dependent on your computer hardware, how long it will take. It performs an iterative process to try to figure out how light is reflecting and bouncing around the model. And you can see how things look. As time goes on, the picture will become increasingly better until it reaches the limit that you've set for it. Excellent, final, or infinite. For print materials and such, final is just fine, but it does take a while. And I think you're already getting the idea, while this looks good, it's not exactly what I want. So let's stop that in-canvas render, and I'll show you some of the things we can do to make it a little bit better. There's some tricks. Let's go to the appearances. One of the things you'll notice is that this is a lamp, but we have no light. But I can fake a light. So if I put in LM for lumens, this is how I find what are called emissive materials. These materials emit light. And I would like to put a LED lamp in here, and it's very small, and it only has 8 lumens. It's a very small lamp. So I'm going to again say faces only, and I will pull a 8 lumen light to that surface. Now, in reality, that surface is not an LED. I have a little ring of LEDs in here, but I don't want to model those, and I'm trying to make a concept model. So let's close that again. Let's look at this from the side, and let's attempt another in-canvas render and see how that looks. Now, it's starting to look a little bit better, but really the whole scene is a bit bright. Let me go into my scene settings and turn the brightness down ever so slightly. And as I do so, you'll be able to see that my brightness goes down. As the brightness goes down, I can see that light beam coming from my LED a little bit more distinctly. Now, as we allow this to go on, you'll say, well, that's not a very bright lamp. That's true. And I could make a lamp with slightly more lumens, but there is something else missing. It doesn't really quite look right up here. And this is more proof that if you do this correctly, it can be really, really good. So let's stop this. Go back to my appearances. And this time I'm going to say plastic glossy, and I'm just going to do it on a face. Make that white. You'll find that lamps in general are white on the inside. And we should be able to see a difference once we render the lamp again. You're starting to see that the light reflecting off the white surface has a great effect on the way that lamp looks, even though the lamp inside is not very bright in and of itself. Now we could allow this to run for quite some time, and there are even tricks to make the lamp a bit dirty or a bit beat up using decals, and these are things that you can learn about in the future. But I wanted to show something else to you. If I stop this render, it's good enough that we could make this lamp and show it to my boss, and we can make a decision about it, whether or not we wanted to do it. Make it like this. But in reality, that's not how we work in the design world. If I return to the design environment, remember that I have here a body. And there is no trouble whatsoever for me to use the technique from before to copy that body and then to paste that body. Move that body in this direction, any direction will do at this point. And I could even paste additional copies, maybe move one back in that direction, however you like. I could then return to the rendering environment, go to the appearance menu. I can make some changes. Perhaps one of these should be plastic glossy red. I want to keep the faces that have other definitions. And maybe another one should be, I don't know, let's go with green. I'll show you another little trick that I have actually seen used on some lamps. Instead of having a white surface, we may use a warm gold tone. Place this only on the face. And this will have an effect on the way the light is reflected off of our very small lamp. In the same way, perhaps, we could change the luminescence of this one and make it a bit brighter, searching again for our LM for lumens, and I might choose one that is quite a bit brighter at 20 to show the difference that might make. Going back to the same view, putting everything in fit, starting my in-canvas render, and we should immediately see some differences based on the colors, on the lamp lighting, on the way our light reflects off of everything. This would be a typical design decision meeting where we would be able to vary different things about the design. And look at that. As a final tidbit, remember that these are all parametrically designed. So if I leave the rendering environment and go back into the design environment, remember that all of these designs were created by this parent feature, the sketch. And if I make changes to this sketch, all child features will update. So let's make this a little bit less angled. A little bit less angled. Yeah. Let's make this a little bit more narrow. Let's make this a bit taller. And perhaps let's make this a bit higher up on the stem. It's a small design change, but you could do even quite large ones. And when I do, these will all update immediately, allowing us, of course, to go back into our rendering environment, creating a render that we can save, share, and discuss. Now, this has been our most basic concept design tutorial about how to create a small table desk lamp using Fusion 360. I have used the most basic of all parametric design workflows. It is the most common of all parametric design workflows, and is by no means the limit of what Fusion can achieve or what you can do with it. But it should be a good starting point for any one of you who is attempting to learn Fusion 360 to make your ideas a reality. I do hope it's been useful for you, and as always, good luck.